Hello, everyone. It's good to be back again. I hope everyone has been doing well, having a good time. I have been having a good time as well. Thank you for everyone who has been engaging me on the comments, supporting me. Please, if you're new, like, subscribe, and share. Uh, I can see there are a lot of views, but the subscription is a bit low. Please subscribe so that you can always know that when I post the video, post something. So today I'm going to be talking about why infrastructure projects in Africa is a new form of corruption, and it's the new frontier. We must look at how it came to this, because when Africa was gaining independence, I believe the first corruption was the transition of the independence from the British government to the African-led government. And this is where the first experience of corruption happened. Apart from for the people who supported collaborators who supported the colonial movement, the first heavy corruption was between this change, because now you find that the leaders of Africa who took over from the British government or from the French or the colonial power that if you're from a country, the colonial power that was there. So you find that this was the first corruption, because the aim was to ensure that Africa is now self-led. It's led by its people so that it can prosper. But immediately these people took over. They decided to keep the resources that was meant to grow Africa from themselves. At that time, there were no need for projects because the population of most African countries was low, and the British had done projects, even though the projects were not that good, but they had left something. So some few projects, even though those projects done by the British or the colonial master, like the French, or for selfish means, they had left some projects. And now we came back. The next form of corruption in the 80s, 70s was early the 90s was in a form of aid. Africa is struggling. We are having a bad economy, and you can remember, if you live in Kenya, you can remember that in the 1980s, Kenya. In the 1980s and 1990, Kenya was, entered into the IMF again, and now it had to have structural adjustment program, which were one of the worst kind of regulation that ensured that even the economic crisis that we have in Kenya today denotes from the structural adjustment program. But we can't blame the IMF really, because at that time Kenya was going through a lot of corruption, and thus the economy wasn't doing very well, and so the leaders at that time had to ask the IMF to build them out. And when the IMF comes, it has its own condition. It's called the Ministry of Finance, of World Finance. So you can't do whatever you want. So at that time, if you don't know and you're living in Kenya, that's the time that VAT was introduced, because at that time there was no VAT. But when the IMF gave us money, that's when VAT was introduced, more taxes were introduced, so that Kenya could be able to pay the debts. And now you come to 2022, and you can see that Kenya borrowed money from the IMF in 2020. And now if you come to Kenya, you find that taxes have increased almost everywhere, from fuel. So it's like we are not learning we are not using history to learn. And that's why I'm saying projects now are the new kind of corruption, because after the aid, there was this talk that from Western countries that, even their own citizens were putting their governments to account. Why are you giving these people money and the money is not benefiting the citizen? It's only benefiting the leaders. And so when China came to power, there was this talk of let's approach Africa through a business trajectory, no more aid. And you realize that African leaders really took advantage of this. And they, as my previous video was saying, that there's this African mentality of always wanting to catch up with the European, the American, the white person, rather than, taking our time and study. We're always playing catch up. And you don't understand that Europeans, Americans have built themselves for hundreds, if not thousands, for years. So, we need to accept our position and try to build ourselves slowly by slowly. And, now there was this talk, because everyone is always aspires to be aspires, that everyone's definition of development is based on an European-centric view or an American. So when the politician now came with, we'll build roads, we'll build highways, we'll build railways, these were very populist statements. So, even the citizens supported. And this is now where the heavy major corruption were. And if you look at how even Africa's trajectory, there's a lot of project and construction. But my worry is probably Africa will end up with the most expensive construction projects in history and the most worthless construction projects in history, because you find that the projects that are happening in Africa it doesn't make any money sense, because if you're building a road and I'll just explain, like the express highway in Nairobi, the road costs $1 billion. The technology to build a road, the Romans started building roads 1,000 years ago. So there's no you can tell me that making roads the technology is becoming harder and harder. In fact, right now to make a road, I believe it's much easier to make a road, a tarmac road. So this notion that the prices of things around the world are going up, so even the price of but the technology of making the road has stagnated, because every technology of making a road, a tarmac road, has been exploited. So you cannot come up with a new technology. And if you come up with a new technology, the new technology will be based on cost effectiveness, in that, probably the technology that you have now to make 1 kilometer of tarmac requires $1,000. Probably if you come up with a new technology, it will show that you can make tarmac, because I was saying tarmac now can be made through plastic, and it will require you to spend $500 for a kilometer. So this notion that that things are expensive, it's a notion that's being propagated by the politician. If you look at Germany, when Hitler took over, the roads that he made in Germany, the highways, the overpasses were crazy. So, this is just like 78 years ago. So the road technology cannot now, making a road is not going to Mars. If you're telling me you are going to Mars, I can understand, because Mars is still an uncharted area. So probably it will need a lot of resources so that, because it's something that has not been done before. If you look at how a person like Elon Musk through SpaceX is doing, now he can launch rockets by, you can pay him $20 million to launch a rocket. I hear you can even pay now $100,000, $500,000. And if you look 50 years ago, probably even launching a rocket could have cost $1 billion. So this notion that, the road it doesn't make sense, because if you look at launching satellites now, it's way cheaper. Even you as a personal, you can launch your own satellite. So it shows you the more we advance, and we have already discovered a technology, the technology should be even cheaper. And that's why I'm saying projects are the new frontier of corruption. They bring a lot of money, because for you to do a road project, you can look at the Kenyan SGR. Kenya almost spent $3 billion to $4 billion on that project. That's a lot of money at once. So you find that the politician will divide the money among themselves, and then the country will be left paying the debt. But how long is this sustainable? Because now it's forcing African countries to bring, developed systems, very, very advanced system, to a continent that has no human resource, because and the economic situation is not good, because now what is forcing African countries to do is every road they build, they have to put a toll booth to charge people. So you've already started charging people on toll booth, and yet, they look at the environment. It's most of it looks poverty. So it's forcing African government to accelerate, to the European kind of league, but at a very high cost, and not a sustainable cost. Because if you are living in Europe or in the States, and then you pay for a toll booth, you can see where the money is going. But now you look at Kenya and Africa. The reason people are paying toll booths is because the government has incurred so much cost. Now it's deciding that it will work with other partners so that people can be paying. And to me, it doesn't make sense. And because now, like in Kenya, you have a project called the housing project. The aim is to make affordable housing. It's a very good idea, and I think it's a very smart idea if it is implemented well. But then there's a very high risk of corruption, because the project might consume 500 billion Kenya shillings to a trillion Kenya shillings. So who's accountable? Who's going to save this money? So it's a very interesting scenario to see that, and it's not in Kenya. You go to Uganda, there are projects being done over there. You go to Tanzania, the same. You go to Angola. We saw how Angola, Angola has the largest Chinese debt. And now it is almost, the last time I checked, its economy was in recession, because it took very many loans and it did very useless projects. You go to Congo. Congo is taking heavy loans from the Chinese. You go to Ethiopia, the same. And we have to ask ourselves, is this how we are going to grow Africa? Is this how we are going to develop Africa? By playing catch up, and rather than sitting down, analyzing ourselves and looking at our situation and trying to say, probably if you're making roads, let's just make the necessary roads for now. And then as economy grow, we'll keep adding, in Kiswahili, they say haba na haba ujaza kibaba. But all this trying to catch up, every president now is promising big things. If you look at this last election campaign in Kenya, everyone was promising, heaven and big things. And even people were asking, even economists were asking, how are you going to fund these projects you're promising? Because they don't look very feasible. The Kenyan debt now is 10 trillion Kenya shillings vis-a-vis, a budget of 2 trillion, 3 trillion. So how is this realistic? And now you can see even the new administration in Kenya is promising more projects. So it looks like this is the new, I don't know, this is the new scapegoat to make money, because now they've realized they can't use the aid anymore. Now it's let's develop Africa, but developing Africa will come at a heavy cost for the consumer. I remember when I was young, when I was in standard 8, not even standard 6, 7 there, if you had 30 Kenya shillings, that you could eat so many fries, and the salads were free, everything was free. And then you look back, and now you're in 2022, and then you start to realize that even 100 Kenya shillings is no money, even 1,000. So those are the questions that I'm trying to think of, and I'm trying to find a solution in terms of, I think government should now take very serious this trajectory that they're heading, because if we are not careful, we are repeating the same mistake that South American countries did. They took a lot of loans, and right now, if you look, there's no South American country that is developed, because this play card, this scheme has been played before. South American countries also invested a lot of projects in loans, in the building castles in the air, saying that we will do this, and they made projects, but their projects were so costly. Look at a country like Argentina; it is always in recession. IMF. We look at Venezuela. Look at the economy of Brazil. There's no country in South America you can tell me that it is performing. So this script has been done before. You go to the Philippines, you see the same. So African countries, and my worry is that all African countries are in this scheme. No African country standing out as an independent scheme. And I hope that, my aim is to push this content and, just make the African person aware of how the situation is, because we need to get out of that dreamland of pretending that, having that, African ego that we are the richest continent on earth, we are colonized, because nobody cares about that. Right now, 60 years down independence, we need to show something. So my aim is to, to stimulate the African person mentality, because I'm a Pan-Africanist, I believe in Africa, but then again, the leadership in Africa is not doing its work. So my aim is to, challenge the normal African person, because real leaders are a reflection of our culture. So if we can't detach a bad president from a bad people, because that president is there because the people accept him. So mine is to engage the African mindset and show that, even when you are choosing a leader, you need to be very careful and think about the future of the country. So anyway, guys, it's good to be back again today. So cheers. Good day.